And we are live for today's Patreon video. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I was recording something for my channel Real Creators for tomorrow, and was in the middle of a thought, looked up and went, oh, I gotta go talk to people over on Patreon. I'm running behind. So here we are. The Disney Nerd. Good afternoon, Mr. Chandler. How are you doing? I'm doing all right. The Texas allergies are hitting me hard this year. The older I get, the more I seem to have allergies, and they are just destroying me this year. So, I mean, it's like if I don't take allergy medicine, at some point in time during the day, my eyes will just start burning, and I can't see. Like I just have to sit there holding my eyes closed until I get medicine, and then it help. So this morning I was just like, what is going on? Like I was trying to play Fortnite with my son, and I was like, buddy, I'm gonna die. I'm just sitting with my eyes closed because they burn. So I got some medicine and they're a little better. Hey Sean, hope you're doing well and have a great day. And trying to be productive. Jay Studard, good afternoon, Sean. How are you? It's raining where I live. I'm doing all right. As I'm just kind of mentioning here, just allergies are giving me trouble. But yeah, we've had a good bit of rain recently. Typical for Austin area in this time of year. Richard, hello. Hello. Dayton, hey Sean, recently watched La Haine. Have you seen it? No. I don't know what that is actually. Richard Price, I hope Liam is doing okay. Yeah, he's fine. So if you don't know what we're talking about, I post on some of my social media. It's actually the day that I kind of postponed my schedule a bit. I postponed it because I just need a little bit more time to finish a few things. And then almost immediately after I made the decision to postpone, give myself some breathing room, we get a phone call that Liam has bonked head. Was another kid on the... Actually, the kid's name was Liam, too. So it was two Liams bonked heads. And Liam gashed his eye, and the nurse thought he needed stitches. And he ended up getting 4 stitches. So it was that Thursday. It was a pretty exciting day for us. But he was shaken up until he got the stitches. And he was just scared of getting the stitches. And then since then, he's been totally fine. He's had a couple times where he's been like, my head hurts. He's like, here, take your medicine. And then he's fine. So, you know, kids hurt themselves all the time. It's good. It's good for kids to get little injuries here and there and get used to it. That's the way the world works. And you don't want kids to be afraid of having fun. So, you know, obviously it's bad. At the same time, it's a little bonk, gets some stitches, and he gets used to not afraid of the world. G Student, that's what we just talked about. Hello from Charlotte, North Carolina. Hello, Mr. Davis from Hutto, Texas, where I'm at. Gamerman, hey Sean, does the Superman and Lois trailer give you Man of Steel vibes? So, if you guys don't know this, and it is brand new, so there's not a lot of reasons, someone actually will... Actually, I'll tie this in right here. At 2S... I don't know what that means in Spanish, but what will Sean Chandler plus you channel be? It's exactly what it's been and exactly what it will be. But so the first video I posted it on there was my kind of reaction to the Superman and Lois trailer, my thoughts on it. Does it give a Man of Steel vibe? Sort of, but in the sense that Man of Steel kind of told Superman's origin story, Smallville centric, a lot of it, kind of a Superman who's introspective. Does it have that vibe? Yes, it does. It does have that element to it. I don't know that it'll be anything like Man of Steel beyond that, but it reverses it. And that's what I talk about in the video that I posted over there. But so, I said, what will Sean Chandler YouTube channel be? So if you've watched any of the videos in the comment, I've tried to make it pretty clear on the channel. I've stated exactly what it is. It's just an opportunity for me to post my thoughts on more things, clips from the podcast that people might not have seen without having to worry about the algorithm. That's what it is. So it'll be videos that aren't as edited as much. They're more kind of one-take little videos. Somewhat kind of like the stuff I post on Patreon for some of the things that I do here. But it's kind of new movies come out, and they're not all movies that will make a good video on my main channel. Even most movie reviews don't do well on my channel. So I want to talk about them for everyone. I don't feel those make for great even Patreon exclusives. So I want to talk about them, but I don't even know where to talk about them in a way that kind of gets people to watch it. Likewise, I do the podcast and I talk about all these things that people ask me about all the time, but they don't know that because it's in the middle of a 90-minute video. So then I can clip it out and I can create a way that it's easy for people to find all the things I've talked about. But if I did that on my main channel, people subscribe for these heavily edited numbered lists and rankings. And so then it annoys everyone in a certain way when I do that, when I've clipped them out. And so I lose subscribers when I clip them out there, while it's content that certain people want. So it's just trying to find a place to do that. The Disney Lord. So I saved 3 movies to watch on Tubi that I've never seen before. Memento, Whiplash, and Ex Machina. Those are good movies to watch. So they're not big, fast action movies, but they're very good films. Jesse Bonds. Hey, Sean, I checked out the Too Many Cooks video. All I can say is, wow, that is weird. Yes, Too Many Cooks is super weird intentionally. I'm glad that I got some people to watch a very, very weird thing. Andrew Toole, thoughts on them pushing Bond back another several months? A COVID decision or maybe more reshoots? I mean, this is not reshoots at all. It has nothing to do with reshoots. It has, like, that movie's been done for a year. It's a COVID decision. Like, there's no other take on it. So I don't have any thoughts on it. I mean, my podcast all last year was my thoughts on movie delays, and I don't have any new ones. The only slight addition to it is a bunch of people are like, why don't they just drop it on a streaming service? Because they're not tied to one. WB, Warner Brothers, they're tied together. It's easy to do. If you've got a movie that costs $30 million, it's easy to sell it to Netflix or Amazon Prime, and it's a win-win. But if you want your Bond movie to make $1 billion, Netflix can't profit. It does not worth enough for them to pay $500 million, $600 million for it. But it has nothing to do with reshoots. There's no chance it's reshoots. It is a COVID decision. It is only a COVID decision. Anyone speculating that it's reshoots, it's just, at a certain point in time, it goes into the stupid category. The movie was ready to be released a year ago. Ready to be released. And so what, they waited a year and then went, hey, let's just keep changing the movie? No. Vincent Hose, who is your favorite underrated DC character? Underrated DC character. It's tough to say. I think the one he's well known but underutilized in the mainstream properties would be Dick Grayson. There's a very interesting dynamic if you go into the Nightwing stuff of what if the boy that was raised under Bruce Wayne turned into a hero and then he grows up and he seems to be a little bit more stable of an adult than Bruce Wayne. There's a lot of interesting dynamics with the two of them, but with the way the live action stuff is played out, we've never gotten a full version of the Dick Grayson story. You've Chris O'Donnell in the 90s, that's not cutting it. And so then I think that's where there's a lot of potential that we haven't really explored. Luke Rorig, what do you think of the band Kiss? Or do you like the band Kiss? Not really. I mean, they've got a couple songs that I think are good, but they, to me, always strike me as one of these bands that's famous for the persona. They're famous for the shows. They're fantastic entertainers, and they marketed themselves brilliantly. But then you get into the music itself, and I don't think the music lives up to the hype. If you think about how many songs do they have that have really, one of the reasons I'm not really into Kiss is because very few of their songs were ever played on the radio here in Texas growing up. Like most of the classic rock, hard rock bands, I enjoy them because I kind of grew up listening to them on classic rock radio. I never played Kiss around here. So maybe it's just where I'm at, they don't play them, so I'm just not as used to them. But there's a handful of them that I know the name songs, but they just don't seem like they're on the same level as many of the other bands that were as big of stadium acts as them. The other ones seem to be more based on the songs. Kiss seems to be more based around the show. So I don't own any Kiss albums. I've never owned any Kiss albums. In fact, to a certain extent, when I first started, like, oh, let me check out Kiss. Man, this must be some hard rock, heavy metal band. I thought they were awfully tame, considering, clowns from hell with long tongues in the show and the platform shoes. And then considering all of that, they're kind of tame. So it's even part of why. Rich Reviews, thoughts on Fox TV possibly bringing back America's Most Wanted? I watched America's Most Wanted back in the day and Unsolved Mysteries. I watched a lot of those shows growing up. I don't, if it's good, it's good, cool. I think some of the appeal is that gets lost in the social media age because we already know these stories. There's already a space to where we're hearing these forgotten stories, forgotten by the nightly news. And so I don't know if there's a space for it. We'll find out. But back before social media, you had the nightly news, and then you had America's Most Wanted telling you this other stuff and these people that disappeared and interesting stories, and how can we find these people that are dangerous that are out there. And you have this whole kind of subgenre shows like that. Social media has filled that void. So I don't know if it's needed. Iker, have you seen Rebels and Clone Wars? Yes, I've seen every episode of both shows. I mean, I reviewed season 7 of Clone Wars. I don't know if I've covered anything for Rebels, but I watched all of Rebels when it first ran. Just Sitter, what's your favorite part of making YouTube videos? I don't know. It's tough to say. Every video is different. Every video has things about it that I like and things I don't like. So it's tough to say this is the one thing that I love, because there's videos that are fun researching and there's videos that aren't fun researching. There's videos that are fun to write and you just kind of feel like I'm in the groove, and other ones it's not fun to write. Filming and editing aren't certainly probably I wouldn't say filming or editing. Certainly not editing. I don't particularly enjoy editing. It's like the work that I have to do. And I'm exploring options for getting an editor. There's a guy I know locally that's reached out to me, said that he can do some editing, but I don't actually make enough money to pay someone to do my editing for me. So um I would assume not, at least based off what I would charge as an editor to do it. Like what they're not, it wouldn't be a profitable model. So I don't. There's not a single thing that's easy to say. Like it's great to meet people, but then it's also there's people that aren't so great to meet. So there's not a single answer. Dayton, have you seen Superbad? Yeah, I've seen Superbad probably 2 or 3 times. I've seen it more than once. Enjoy it enough. But I mean, I've said it many times before. Like the entire high schoolers, college kids get to the party to do drugs and girls genre. It's just not for me. I just don't. I don't care for the genre. Like I'll laugh at those movies, but there's a side to it that just that doesn't resonate with my childhood. And as someone that worked with teenagers for 8 years, and actually worked for teenagers longer than I worked with teenagers full time for 8 years, it's just not fantasizing and romanticizing that behavior isn't something that interests me. The Disney nerd. I saved a lot of movies on Prime Video account. I've never seen Watchmen, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Alien, and Aliens. To check them out because of positive. You've talked about them. Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are all movies that I would recommend. Very different types of movies. I mean, you have 4 different decades covered there, so very different movies. So it's tough to even make a general statement about them. But good movies, yes. Rich reviews. This goes back to this. I actually responded to this on Twitter before. Right before the last thing I did before I started this was actually respond to your tweet about this. But Rich reviews. Do you find it creepy that there is a 20-year plus difference between the president of France and his wife? The wife is his former teacher, and they got married after the fact. So this goes back to a tweet that I responded to like right 30 minutes before I started this stream, and then I recorded some video stuff, and then literally right before I got here, I responded. But so you tweet about that. I'd have to know more information. So basically, someone was on Jaron Talks Movies, or Jaron Williams. He's posting on Twitter about, I don't know what set him off to make the tweet about it, but he was posting about how the age difference between Aaron Taylor Johnson, is that right? We gotta make names. Anya Taylor's confusing names again. His wife is 20 years older than him. So he's like 31. They've been married for a while. So he was like in his early 20s when he married someone in her late 40s. And so he's saying like, hey, they've got a huge age difference. People make a big deal about age differences. And then he responded to someone saying like, hey, as long as the two people are legal, then I'm good with anything. So I responded back, goes like, as someone that turns 40 this year, I am not. Like, the idea of someone my age dating an 18-year-old, I just see that like, that's weird and creepy. Like that's people that was born after I graduated high school, and being like, hey, 5 minutes ago I'd be a pedophile if I dated you, but let's date. That's so weird to me. Um, and maybe it's also because I worked with teenagers, and therefore, like I've and long enough that a bunch of my teenagers have grown up, and they're now like friends and peers of mine, to see the difference between an 18-year-old and a 25-year-old. But so I just responded. There's a big difference. People like mature a lot between 18, 22. So it's a little bit more to it. So that's what Rich is responding to. What do I think about the president of France and his wife, their 20-year plus difference? I would have to know more information. My wife's best friend from college, she's my age, or well, so she's my age or our age. She married her husband right around 30, 31, something like that, or started dating 100 when she was age 30, and he's 50. So it's a 20-year age difference. And he has a son that is only a couple years younger than her. Inherently, that's weird and interesting. But she's 30. She's a grown up. She's mature. She has a career. They met in the workforce. And they've been married for years now, so it's fine. But they thought about it. They recognized this is unusual. Let's make sure this can work before we proceed with this. Both of them could do that. The idea of like a 40-year-old with an 18-year-old, that it's just not the same thing as a 30-year-old with a 50-year-old. Like, there's so much maturing stage of life that, anyway. So I don't know anything about the president of France and his teacher. Of course, it's an interesting note to say something like that. Like if he married his 40-year-old teacher when he was 18, that is weird. That is very weird. Especially because even as royalty for like there's so many layers to that that's weird. But I mean, I think it's you focus on maturity and stage of life is more important than what's legally the bare minimum legally acceptable thing. That is such a creepy concept. Even like, well, she's legal now. She turned 18 yesterday. I get the purpose of the law, but some weird stuff about that. Mr. Davis, what is your favorite and least favorite Dwayne Johnson film? I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. Like his first Jumanji is really good. Fast Five is really good, but it's not really a Dwayne Johnson movie. I'm sure there's one I'm missing. I can't think of one that I just hated it. I don't think there's one that stands out to me that was off-putting. Almost the issue with his films is that they're all safe. That's the big complaint. So I don't have a worst, and I don't really have a best. He's just kind of right there in that, like, he has a lot of stuff that I find very watchable. And some of the Fast and Furious movies he's been a part of have been very watchable for me. So, maybe Hobbs and Shaw, but that, like, it feels weird even saying that. So I guess I would go with his first Jumanji. First Jumanji, I think, is a great family film. My family watches it all the time. It is so much better and more rewatchable than it should be. Shashake, I checked out Warrior last week. I loved it a lot. I think it can beat Rocky in my opinion. Just beat Rocky in my opinion. I think it's more rewatchable, but some of that's because one of those movies is almost 50 years old and one of them's only 10 years old. But I can understand. Like I don't blame anyone that does that. It out Rocky's Rocky in a lot of ways. Jay Stewart, can you make a video showing how you make your videos, or do you think it wouldn't work well for your general audience? Well, I mean, I wouldn't make it for my general audience, but I have a second channel, Real Creators, where that's the sort of stuff that I do. It's all about YouTube stuff, and that's a priority for this year. I started it up last Sunday, and then I'm shooting the video right now. Like the camera's set up right now with the card still in it. That's what I was doing before I started this live stream, is shooting tomorrow's video for Real Creators. That's all about YouTube stuff. So the idea that I'll make a video on how I make my videos is very likely for even the next 3 months. That I would probably happen on that channel though. But I wouldn't do that on my main channel now. But if you look it up, I think I did a video like that 3-ish years ago. I mean, it goes through the whole process, brainstorming, filming, editing, what I did back then. It's different now, but it's not. It's the same basic idea. It's just building off of the same framework of what I did back then. Matt G, last night my friend and I did a private screen rental at the theater. We were streaming YouTube content. We, in fact, watched you on the big screen. Oh, you finally made it to the silver screen. Yes, I did it. It's pretty cool. So I haven't done one of those rentals. My sister and I and her family and I were going to do a Harry Potter, and then a series of things happened, so that didn't happen. It was unfortunate series of events. One of them being my dog dying. But we were going to watch the first Harry Potter and rent one out, and it ended up happening. But I still need to do that, especially now that movies are getting delayed again. Um, so, but I made it on the big screen. That's fun. It's fun to think about. The Disney nerd. I'm trying to think if like there's something else I would have done that would have been shown on a movie theater screen. Because I've got a couple acting credits, but they're all for like my friend's small projects. So if you go on IMDb, you can find my acting credits. I don't know if any of those actually played in a theater though, even for like a small one showing or anything. I don't know if that had happened for any of them. How excited are you for the Godzilla vs Kong trailer? Pretty excited. I want to check it out. I'm excited for the movie. We watched the Godzilla 2014 last night, building up to it. So I'm pretty excited for it. Iker, what directors would you like to do a DC Star Wars MC movie, and for which characters? I don't know. It's kind of three big questions in one that it's tough to like. DC, who would I like to tackle a character? It's tough because you got the whole world of possibilities. For Star Wars, for a long time, it would have been Steven Spielberg, but then I think he's too old. I think he's lost his touch. He doesn't have his finger on the pulse. And then my pick was Jon Favreau. I've got a video on my channel, top 20 directors who should direct episode 9 now that Colin Trevorrow stepped down. Jon Favreau was my number, but he's done Mando now. So, I want Brad Bird. Incredibles, Mission Impossible 4. I want him to do a Star Wars movie. He's just great energy, great comedy. What he did with Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. MCU, I don't know. I don't have specific MCU. It's so producer driven. It's not all that interesting to say, I want this director to do one of these. I don't have anyone like that. You know, like I'd like to see Fantastic Four, and it'd be cool if John Krasinski took over for John Watts. Like I liked that idea, but they're all Kevin Feige-ified. They're all Disney-ified. So I don't have someone to stand out there. So for DC, who do I want to see that we haven't seen yet? So they had talks about, I think it was the Raid guy was going to do a Dick Grayson Nightwing movie. Or no, it was the guy that did Lego Batman, and he said he was going to be influenced by the Raid. I think that's doing something like that, doing a street level Nightwing movie, budget under $100 million. Get someone that focuses on practical stunt work, strong fight choreography. That sounds great. And if the guy that did Lego Batman wants to do that, awesome. If the guy that did the Raid wants to do it, Raid do it even better. Dayton, have you seen the movie Breakin' from 1984? I've not seen Breakin' or Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. I've seen none of them. Gamer Man, I forgot to ask you who's your favorite Arrowverse character is. That's tough. I don't know. I mean, I like vigilantes, so early Oliver Queen I would easily go with, because I just like that type of vigilante that comes back from an island with a purpose. But I don't like the later. I don't like kind of where he ended up. He's just some of the intrigue was kind of gone for me. Barry Allen is a lot of fun. I like their characterization of Superman, so maybe this show could certainly win me over. Diggle, I thought was was great when they great. Diggle and Felicity were both great when they first introduced them, and I think when they had to like find drama for them, and Diggle's like, "Why didn't you give me the suit? I wanted this," like doing stuff like that. It was kind of ruined the character. Of course, Felicity was ruined when they actually got together. John Barrowman as Malcolm Merlin, a great character, but it's tough to pick one because feel like the main characters all had a certain point in time where they just went too far, ruined stuff with it. Andrew Toole, would you consider watching through and doing some quick reviews on some old Hitchcock movies, North by Northwest, Vertigo, Notorious? Yeah, so one of the things about I started the extra channel, Sean Chandler Plus, just a few days ago. Some of the idea is to be able to do things like that. There's movies that either people request that I do, people send me stuff in fan mail. I mean, like right there, you actually can't see because the light's shining off of it. But I have a 5-disc set of Alfred Hitchcock movies that someone sent me. The reason it's right there is because I brought it downstairs to start slowly watching through them, and then we cleaned downstairs, so now it's back in my office, and I'm going to do my Blu-ray collection video soon, so I have to put it on my shelves. But like, it's on my mind to do that. And but it's like, what, sometimes it's tough because I'm always trying to think, what can I make content out of? And I have to watch in preparation for rankings. And I don't think Alfred Hitchcock ranking would do well on my channel because that's just not what I've covered. So sometimes it's tough to know, but that's where the second channel provides a way to, like, I can watch it and I can post it and just not worry about algorithms, slick editing. It's not about trying to game the system or have a master plan. It's just, what do I want to talk about? What's something a little bit different? How can I experiment without experimenting with, my primary money-making asset, which is my channel? Javier, what elements make for a good movie for you? Do you focus on any specific parts, elements? It depends on, based on the genre. It's the last question. It depends on the genre. I think one of the great phrase that I heard from John Campea is that certain genres in particular, you can get everything wrong, but if you get the genre's number one thing right, you could still have a good movie. A comedy can have terrible characters, terrible plot, be cliche, but if you're laughing from beginning to end, you do not care about any of those things. Its number one job is to make you laugh. And if it does that, it's a good comedy. So it really does depend. And that's where movie reviews are so tricky. Trying to rate them is even trickier. Because how do you review like a dumb comedy that, man, you're laughing from beginning to end? You love this comedy, but the plot's nonsense. And so whatever criteria that you use to review Mank, like, you're using entirely different criteria. That there's just almost no overlap besides you watch them with your eyes and hear them with your ears on a screen. So that's what makes it, some of this reviews tricky. And then you think through like a movie like The Raid. It's an action movie. The plot, very bare bones simple. Police guys go into a building, find themselves in over their head, and have to make their way up the building and out of the building. That's the whole movie. And survive. But it's awesome because the fights and choreography are awesome. But action's weird because then you'll have other ones like Extraction that has great action and choreography, but people are a little bit more split on it. I loved it for the same reason that I loved The Raid. Other people were like, these characters are too thin. So there's just something about movies that they have to work on their own terms for individuals. And so, when it comes to my reviews in general, I don't look at acting all that much. That's not something that I think I'm very good at. I don't look too much at like cinematography. I think the thing I'm better at is analysis of story, in particular on I think story. That's because I have more interest in it. I've read more books on screenwriting and storytelling and things like that, to have a better vocabulary and can notice things and talk about them a bit more. I believe the Kong vs. Godzilla trailer will drop during the NFC Championship game, which would make sense. Griffin and I were talking about on the podcast how we were expecting all of that stuff to drop during the Super Bowl. This is the same concept. They're just lining up a series of let's drop trailers during big events. Like everyone else is delaying. Guess what? Godzilla vs. Kong. It's happening on HBO Max and in theaters. Go either one. We just want you to watch our movie. It is actually happening. All those other studios, they abandon you. Godzilla and Kong, Warner Brothers, HBO Max, we didn't. That's what they're doing with all this stuff. Jay Studdert, favorite movie quote and why? Take your time and think about it. I don't really like to pick favorites, though I'm famous for making rankings in top tens, which are picking favorites. But those aren't lists I just have lying around normally. I have to sit there, think about it, develop that, and then put it out. Takes a lot of time. So I don't have, by default, have any favorite movie quote. I could list off a ton of generic ones based off my favorite movies that you could kind of predict. But I definitely don't have one that would come to mind that I could just off the spot. Like I really don't. Have you seen another round yet? No. I mean, everyone keeps telling me about it. It sounds like it's really well done. it also sounds like a movie that I don't know how to phrase this, but it's a movie about drinking too much and things related to that. That's a part of my story. I started my channel while in recovery, so I'll watch it on my time, and I'm not really in a rush to watch a movie about that. As great as it might be, and even kind of when people say, "Hey, I know you've struggled with alcohol, so I thought you might like this movie, or what? Love to hear your perspective on it." Um, Honestly, those sorts of comments almost make it less likely I'll watch it because I don't want that to be a part of my life that is used in that manner. It is sometimes by chance. Gavin O'Connor, the director of Warrior, one of my favorite movies, directed a movie by Ben Affleck last year that covered stuff like that. And so for me, that was something that's where I wanted to embrace that. And it came up while talking about that movie. Generically speaking, that's not something but that was coming from me related to a director and some other things like that. When other people mention it to me in that manner, it strikes me as very odd. And I don't mean to be rude, or I don't know if any would even take it that way, but it's uh, alcohol drinking, that part of my life ruined my life for a long time. I was lucky enough that I got a second chance, and it's turned out great. But that there's a lot of luck in that, and there's enormous amounts of pain related to years of my life because of how I treated the people around me. That it's tough to like. I don't. My wife hasn't even watched The Way Back with me yet because she knows it'll be really good, but being really good means it brings up a lot of stuff that neither one of us really want to be brought. We're glad that we're years removed from that. Gamerman, rest in peace, Larry King. Yeah, I can't say that he was someone that I specifically followed to be able to make any posts or have anything meaningful to say, but he was the king of interviews. So I've seen many of his interviews over the years. So it's and seemed to be well respected by everyone, all the way up until you know even recently, people still just talk about him as an interviewer and everything, how gracious he was and helping the next generation of interviewers. So seems like he was a good guy. The Disney World, which world would you think would be you would survive longer in, the MCU or Star Wars? I mean, if you're in the world of the MCU and you're not in a big city, you're probably fine. The world of Star Wars, that's like galactic civil wars, turnover, gangsters. That place sounds like a mess. Dave Patterson, I watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington on Biden's inauguration today. Do you have any films you watch at a specific time of year? Die Hard during December. Do I have movies I watch during specific times of the year? Not annually. Like election night, I watched Air Force One, the Harrison Ford Wolfgang Peterson movie. But I don't have, that's not like a tradition. So I don't think so. Like there's little, like, we'll be intentional about watching a movie because of something, but it wouldn't be like it's not like a tradition outside of December. December's jam packed with 1,000 movies we watch every December, but I'm not thinking of any. Iker, will you review Malcolm and Marie and The Little Things? I don't know. I doubt I would cover them on my main channel. Maybe this new channel, that's where I could cover them, but especially in light of this last year, in light of what the movie space is looking like, I'm trying to refocus my channel to what can be sustainable and trying to think, how do I create a scenario where I still can cover things, but I cover them in a way that makes sense in light of my actual subscriber base. And my subscriber base isn't people that want me to cover a bunch of prestige films. Like, I'm sure, like, some of you are watching, like, oh no, I'd love you to cover more of those. But that's if you have 170,000 subscribers, someone's gonna care if you cover anything. Like, people all the time are like, hey, you should cover anime. It'll expand your audience, but it wouldn't, because I wouldn't be good at it. And you just kind of diversify in a way that you end up frustrating audience members because you tease them into thinking you're going to do things you're not going to do. So when I cover prestige stuff and someone subscribes for that, they're going to be disappointed because that's just not what I cover. That's not what I normally do. That's not what I gravitate towards. So I'm trying to find a way to respect some of that more. Ryan Green, have you seen Anthony Mackie's new movie Outside the Wire? If so, what are your thoughts? Not yet. I keep trying to, or not. I don't want to say keep trying to. I've been meaning to, and it just hasn't ended up happening. Like I even had it queued up, and so I watched like the first 10 minutes, but I think I got distracted, and then I was gonna watch it with my wife. It just didn't end up happening. Like, but I literally turned it on and watched, the first part of it with the drones. I don't even remember if Anthony Mackie even showed up in the movie yet. So, but it's very much on my radar. Like as of right now, I haven't watched a single 2021 movie yet. So, which is interesting. It's kind of, in a certain way, it's refreshing to like just have a pause, a break. Another way, it's kind of depressing because there hasn't been anything that has been must watch, must review for my channel, which is sad in another sense. So, but that one I certainly intend to, and that's once again second channel. I'm 2 weeks late to reviewing it. If I dropped it on the main channel, I don't know what it would do. Have a second channel where I can cover it. Shashak, have you seen the TV show The Wire? No. I've seen a bunch of shows that are in the same category of kind of those early binge shows, but no, that's one that I haven't actually watched yet. The Disney Nerd. Baywatch is easily the worst Dwayne Johnson film in my opinion. That's a top contender. That certainly you could put it there. I only watched it the one time in the theater. I don't remember hitting as much as some people, but it wasn't strike me as good either. I mean, it was just one of those movies that, like, considering the cast and everything, didn't make much of any impact. Gamerman, have you played the original Marvel Ultimate Alliance from 2006? No. Mr. Davis, how do you rent a theater for a movie? I mean, I don't know what that would mean for you because I don't know where you are at. But like for me, Cinemark is the big theater rent. My phone's about to die. 1 second. So I'm pulling my phone up. Cinemark, my local theater. I'll pick a theater. And my phone died. I can't do it. Whoops. But like literally, you just kind of, for me, I just go to the Cinemark and it lists, 5 movies that are playing right now, 6 movies that are playing right now, and then it has something that says private screening room, and you just go to it, and it's $100 if you want to show one of their archive movies, and it's $150 if you want to show like whatever the new release is, which is nothing right now, but like if you wanted to show Tenet when Tenet came out or Wonder Woman back in December, it would be $150 and you can bring 20 people. Or it's $100 for 20 people for something else. But it's super simple. You just kind of go in there, right there. Dave Patterson, did WB just forget to market Godzilla vs. Kong? I'm not quite sure what they have been doing. I think it's because they didn't want to do what happened with Wonder Woman. With Wonder Woman, they marketed it for over a year. The first trailer came out over a year before the movie came out. And so they didn't want to put up their marketing dollars into this big gigantic push that went nowhere. And so they were moving, they kept shuffling the date around with it for a bit anyway. And then COVID hit. So then they're trying to decide what to do with it. It was in May, but they only moved it up to March. 2 weeks ago? A week ago? Like they just moved it to March. In which case, I don't know why they would have put a trailer out for a May movie with the current market and everything like that. So as soon as they moved it to March, then it was like, we're getting a trailer real soon. That's definitely going to happen. And then we're getting it tomorrow. So I think it's entirely related to they didn't know what the release date was and they didn't want to start a marketing campaign for a movie that wasn't going to come out. Like in the case of like No Time to Die, they did a full marketing campaign. They spent like all their marketing, went like $200 million on marketing for No Time to Die release date in 2020. And then they started doing a new marketing campaign for a second release date. They even put out like their Billie Eilish music video and everything like that. The single was released. And then and they scheduled to have Daniel Craig on Saturday Night Live. And then they pushed the release date again. So studios are trying to figure out, how do we not burn $100 million marketing a release date that doesn't happen? Wonder Woman, they put out a trailer saying, hey, it's coming out in August. And then they pushed it again. So they're in a weird spot. Who do you want to win Godzilla vs. Kong? I don't think at the end of the deal, one of them is going to win. I'm sure both of them are going to. They're going to both score some notable wins. They're both going to have notable moments of failure. And then they're going to team up to beat the bigger bad. That's what always happens with these. Otherwise, you alienate half your audience. People always want to team up. Ryan Green, I'm not sure if you spoke about this on your podcast, but what are your thoughts on Nolan and Warner Brothers parting ways? It's sad, but I don't think there's a villain. I mean, Warner Brothers is in the business of, they're in business. Therefore, they're in the business of making money. Nolan is a filmmaker that has remarkable control and is in a position to be the champion of theaters and the cinema experience. He has the clout and power to be able to do that. So that's what he values. They have to make money. He can choose what he values. And they've had a great partnership for 20 years, but we've gotten to the other end of that, and the world has changed. And what's best for him might not be what's best for them, and that seems to be the case now. And therefore, it looks like they're parting ways. You look at the year, and everyone's going like, why don't all these other studios just drop it on streaming? Because they don't have HBO Max. And you're looking at Warner Brothers, and whether this strategy will work, what it'll do. I don't know. There's no point of reference for what we're in right now. We don't know when it's going to end. We're all everyone's doing the best they can with a bad situation and a bad set of cards. So Warner Brothers decided that, let's leverage these valuable items we have to try and promote our service. And their streaming service is going to have an enormous surge in subscribers and viewership, and it's going to become a top-tier streaming service because of it. They're not going to make nearly as much money at the box office, like a fraction, a tenth as much, 15th as much at the box office, but HBO Max will be worth a lot more, and Warner Brothers as a name, they will actually make traction this year where everyone else isn't. But none of that has anything to do with what Nolan values, which is the theater experience. So the world changed, and therefore their partnership changed. Javier, would you like to see Hydra Captain America in Doctor Strange 2? I don't know if you saw this. I did a video on the second channel, Sean Chandler Plus, talking about the whole Chris Evans returning. Oh, maybe it dropped today. Maybe that posted this morning. I don't know. Get confused because it's a clip from the podcast. We talked about it for 10 minutes. I'm open if they want to do alternate world Steve Rogers doing something. Okay. I'm open to that. But that, I don't want it to be a big thing. I hope it's just a cameo. I don't want them to keep having to use Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans as a crutch. Jay Sutter, what's your biggest fear? Maybe, as an individual, not making an impact, feeling like I didn't matter. I just always wanted to do something that kind of moved the needle a little bit. So that's why I've always been interested in creating things. Today feels like I did something because this video exists. So, and then just as soon as you have kids and wife, guys, I've never been afraid. What if I died? I'm gonna die. But as soon as you have kids, that's so much scarier than fearing your own death. It's because there's so many things that can happen, and that's I never really had many anxieties or fears until I had kids, and then you start to feel a lot more things. Andrew Toole, other than Back to the Future, what movies do you think need a remake or revamp? Well, normally it's you want to find a movie that has a concept that translates well to a new era. That's what Back to the Future is for me. The central premise about 1985 high schooler going back to meet his parents in 1955. You can That's interesting, but it's interesting in a new way if it's 2021 high schooler goes back to 1991. It's interesting in a different way. So trying to find a premise that kind of works like that. And that's one reason that almost some action movies don't work as well, because part of the way they're able to work in the movies is because the characters don't have cell phones. And as soon as you have a cell phone and all the technology that's in one of these little pocket computers, the gimmick disappears. Um, I don't know if this is charging my phone. This block has always given me trouble. It's never been a good friend. Seems like maybe it's working a bit, but trying to think. I don't know. I think I've got. I don't remember. I've started making some lists on what movies I think should be remade. That's the one that I always say because that's the one that I have an argument for it. So that's the why I'm known for it. I don't have like a list of other ones. That I mention that one a lot because it's the one that comes to mind. Sorry. Had my Facebook tab open and someone started messaging me, so close that. Dave Patterson, I guess you were going to use Mank. Good. That's good. I'm becoming predictable, and there's a good side to becoming predictable on here and consistent with the way your brain works. It also means you're watching lots of my stuff. You know how my brain works. Iker, will you ever make weekly content for Bad Batch, What If, and Star Wars Visions? I don't know. I don't know. I like without having seen the shows, I don't know how much I like them. I don't know if I have anything to add for them. Uh, what If sounds a lot more likely than Bad Batch or Visions. Visions, if you watched my video on excitement for these, I'm just not even terribly interested in that. So it's not really on my radar as something like, oh man, I can't wait to talk about Visions. I can wait to talk about that, I imagine, because I just don't care about things like that. Bad Batch, I just don't think I'm the target audience enough to care. What could happen there is that it would be something I would do on my family channel with my son. That's what I would guess would happen, is that I'll talk about them with my son, and then maybe I'll rank the episodes at the end of the season. I'll do a season review, but I don't doubt that I would do week to week on my main channel. The Disney Nerd, if you could either keep either of the two sets, which would you keep? The first two Indiana Jones films, the first two Star Wars films? Probably the first two Star Wars films. It'd be like trickier if you'd said Indiana Jones 1 and 3, but Temple of Doom, I would say, is the weakest of that original trilogy. But I don't know. I think Star Wars provides a world to escape to where Indiana Jones is fun adventures. Gamerman, do you think Malcolm Merlin was ruined after Arrow Season 1 when he became an anti-hero? No, I mean, I didn't. That wouldn't be my takeaway about the character. Um, I wouldn't say ruined, no. I think he evolved, he changed, they put him in different positions. He never really becomes a good guy, he's never really trustworthy, but um, I wouldn't say that, no. Andrew, which movies do you quote most often regularly day-to-day life? For me, Nacho Libre, Monty Python, Holy Grail, and The Princess Bride. What movies do I quote most day-to-day? I don't know. I'd have to ask my wife. Maybe she'd have a better answer. Like we watch so many movies and go through so many different things and phases that it cycles a lot. What name, like Cody Leach and Brian Max, would you consider doing a top 100 movies ranking? Nope. Nope, not considering it at all. Like, not at all. Um, that, I mean, I don't know how they did those videos. A ranking of that size, I would release it as, it would take 2 weeks to film it and edit it. And I'd release it as 5 different videos. All 5 of them would be, in and of themselves, a very big, difficult video to create. And then I would do a super cut of the whole thing if I were to ever do it, but I don't plan on doing that anytime soon. I have a top 20 favorites. That video took a long time to make. I did favorite movie of every letter of the alphabet a week back. And that was a video that took a long time to come up with, write, film, edit. 100 movies is a lot. And picking between number 88 and 89 versus number 104, you're getting really specific. And that's I don't care for doing lists. Like maybe that's what I will do for next year's top. I like to update my favorites every once in a while. So maybe for 2022, I'll do a top 50, and then 2 years after that, it will be top 100 or something. But that's an extraordinarily difficult video to make. When I saw that those guys were doing multiple videos in a row that were top 50, I don't know how. They edit their videos differently than me. They film them differently. They write them differently. They compile a list. That is just like I get tired just thinking about trying to make something like that. Iker, final question. Since you say Taco Bell movies a lot, what's your favorite Taco Bell food? I just get tacos. Straight normal tacos, not even Supreme or anything like that. Normal tacos is what I order. It's even my analogy for generic fast food movies. I get the most generic item there, tacos. Sometimes they have different versions of kind of like steak, fajitas and things like that, and I'll go for those. Like I prefer steak over ground beef for a taco, but then they change kind of them around a little bit, so I don't even go for them always. Javier, is Nicolas Cage brilliant actor or a crazy actor? Yes, he actually is brilliant when need be, and he is a crazy person. Jay Studdard, how long have you been collecting Blu-rays for, and how often do you rewatch them? I mean, I've got a lot of movies back there. That was just a picture of me. I don't even know. That didn't help at all. But there's hundreds of movies back there. So saying how often do you rewatch them? It depends on which movie. My copy of Harry Potter, my copy of Moana, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, those are watched constantly because I have kids. But there's, my copy of Schindler's List, it's used once a decade. So, I mean, there is no, how often do I rewatch all of my movies? There's 300 different answers because there's 300 different movies. I don't know how many movies I own, but there's no single answer to that. How long have I been collecting them? Don't know where it went, but the first one I bought was I Am Number 4. So whenever that came out on Blu-ray, I guess that's whenever I first got my first Blu-ray player. Somewhere around I Am Number 4 on Blu-ray, old. That's how long I've been collecting them. Hey, Patterson, Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Breakfast Club? I prefer Breakfast Club. I have seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off more times. That's just the way the universe played out. So as to what have I watched more, Ferris Bueller's Day Off by a multiple, like 5 times more, a lot more. I haven't seen Breakfast Club very many times. It's not even a comment on Breakfast Club. I just haven't seen it as many times. Gamerman, what are your thoughts on and pretty memorable the Arrow episode where Oliver fights Ra's al Ghul or Oliver dies, or at least we thought. What are your thoughts on, and it's pretty memorable, the Arrow episode where... Okay. So what's my thoughts on the episode where Oliver Queen... Well, you're spoiling the middle of season 3 here. Fights Ra's al Ghul the first time. The Ra's al Ghul stuff in that season, I dug, because Ra's al Ghul is an interesting character, and what they're doing is they're swapping out Oliver Queen for Bruce Wayne. So they're telling Batman stories with Oliver Queen, and I think that's fun. I'm fine with them doing that. So the idea of him having a fight and losing somewhat out of his own arrogance and pride, I had fun with that. So I liked that element to it. There's other things about that season that are not so great, but I dug a lot of that stuff. Mr. No, it doesn't seem like that's a comment for me. Mr. Davis, I think every show that ends with a cliffhanger should have to finish it with a quick final season to wrap up the by law for small groups who do watch it. Some of that stuff drives me crazy. Like I don't understand how some of this happened. That the networks are like, nope, you're canceled, and they don't do anything to close it out. That is so frustrating. That is very, very frustrating. She's saying, John, do you believe that people are just too pretentious when it comes to posting thoughts on social media? Personally, know a friend who did not like WandaVision, but posted stories praising it, saying it was the best thing the MCU has done. Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of people out there that fall into all categories. I think Twitter in general, film Twitter and things like that, is pretty pretentious could be the word. I don't know. There's definitely some snooty snobism on film Twitter, and that's one reason I've been backing off heavily from there, because it's just a lot of people repeating the same praise of the same things, and that doesn't interest me. That's not even really doesn't really even help me. That's not my thing, and so like I know, like for me, I was kind of scratching in my head at some of the people that were like saying how much they loved Mank. People that have never heard them talk about watching movies from the 30s, 40s, never heard them talk about Citizen Kane, but you're supposed to like Mank on Twitter. So then they're praising it, and it just sounded like they were copying people. It didn't sound like them. I think that stuff's all over Twitter. And that's the problem with social media, is people want to fit in. It's a public facade, and therefore you get a lot of people posing. Gamerman, do you think Superman Lois is distancing itself from Arrowverse and starting its own thing? I don't know that it's starting its own thing, but I think it's distancing itself from Arrowverse. I definitely got the vibe they're not trying to feel like all these other shows. We're going to put it in a small town. It's about a family. And so I certainly felt like they were moving far away from all that stuff. Javier, will you watch the Conor McGregor fight tonight? No, that one is unfortunately not on my radar as of yet. David Patterson, this will be a difficult question for you to answer. Scorsese or Kubrick? Scorsese. Neither one of them are ones that are like of the iconic classics. They're not the one that I would pick. They're not the one I gravitate towards. But Kubrick just makes too many movies that are not on my wavelength. And so there's really not ones that are for me. And even if you look at his filmography, he's got like 13 movies, but like 8 of them are ones that people don't even talk about all that much, or forget, like that he did with Spartacus. They forget that he did that. So Scorsese, I would be a pretty easy one for me to go with. John Puffinger, greetings, Sean. Have you seen Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus? No, I haven't watched much of anything on Apple TV. I've watched the morning show and the Chris Evans one. I've just done watching season 1. It was really funny. I appreciate all the content. Take care. They seem to do like whatever they do on there, they do well, but there's just not enough on there, so I miss a lot of it. And then it's also not stuff that ties to what I do. Just said, will you ever bring your wife back in future videos? If so, what? If your wife's awesome, that's all her. She doesn't like being in videos. She didn't want to be in videos. We're very lucky that she showed up in that one about her favorite movies. That was very much a special occasion, and she like made that very clear to me that it's a special occasion. So it's not a matter of me having her back on. It's a matter of her wanting to be in a video. Even her being live in the live stream on camera, she didn't want to do that. She doesn't mind doing like behind the scenes. She just doesn't like to be on camera. Josh Myers, what's your Taco Bell order? I already talked about this just before, but I just order a bunch of tacos. It's literally what I order, just tacos. If it's a good Taco Bell, I order crunchy tacos. If it's a bad Taco Bell, I order soft tacos. Because at bad Taco Bells, then my crunchy tacos are soggy tacos, and I don't want that. My local one is a bad Taco Bell. David Patterson, you might not be the biggest fan of it, but I think you might still get something out of the film Princess Mononoke. It is on HBO Max. Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of those recommendations to check those ones out, and it hasn't happened. Mr. Davis, what is a film that you think will do well with a genre switch if Back to the Future happened during the Black Panther error or Holocaust? Just a whole different type of switch. Uh, uh, so I guess the question is like, what movie would do well with a genre swap? Because I think you're saying, what if Back to the Future had people going back to the Black Panther era? Because I'm not quite. It would be civil rights movement. Would be about 10 years after the original film, but that wouldn't. I don't know if that would affect Back to the Future or going back to the Holocaust. I'll just read the first part because I don't know what you're saying in the second half. What is the film you think will do well with a genre switch? Here's an outside the box one. I think that Suicide Squad could have been interesting if part of the vibe of the story was more of a horror thriller, and the monster in the movie Suicide Squad is Batman. The Suicide Squad is on a mission to try and save the world. They're doing it just because they don't want their heads blown up, but they're trying to save the day, and Batman is trying to recapture them because he's not working with Amanda Waller at the moment. And so they're on this mission trying to not be taken by Batman, who's trying to arrest them. But if they're arrested, their head will blow up. If they fail the mission, their head blows up. So you almost do like a horror spin on Suicide Squad. I think that's an interesting concept. I don't have one off the top of my head that's just like a straight up, because it's just trying. It's like all movies out there. What if they switch genres? It's just too many things circling in my brain. Dan Peters, my wife and I are planning on having dinner somewhere in North Austin area. Give me your recommendations. I need someone to blame if I have a bad pick. I mean, I don't have anything interesting for you. I don't go to any fancy places or anything like that. I don't know any mom and pop places. We just don't eat out like that all that much. We have kids, so I really don't have recommendations that could be terribly helpful. Rudy's is fun because it's a barbecue place at a gas station, and they have a hand washing machine. Or if you like burgers, Mighty Fine. It's owned by the same people that own Rudy's. Once again, often tied to a gas station, and they have hand washing machines. And when you go in the bathroom, it's one-way glass. And so as you're going pee at the urinal, you can look out the window and watch people eating food. So, that's a nice touch. But I don't like I'm not the right person whatsoever to make restaurant recommendations. I don't ask people for restaurant recommendations because I just that's not the way I operate, and I don't offer them either. I don't have anything interesting to say. I have very low standards for food. Jay Studdard, this is a follow-up answer to when I asked you often you watch Blu-rays. I Am Number 4 came out in 2011. You've been collecting Blu-rays for 10 years. How do you feel about that? I mean, I don't really feel anything about it because it wasn't really significant for me. That's just whenever I got the new technology. I'd been buying Blu-rays before that and VHS tapes before that. And all growing up, we had VHS tapes. So it's not like in my mind, 10 years ago, I started collecting these. To me, it's 10 years ago I bought a Blu-ray player and I guess had a 1080 TV for the first time. That's what it means to me. Or I had a projector at the time, is what I was before I even bought this TV, I believe. So I had a projector. So it was whenever I first bought a Blu-ray player. That's as deep as it kind of means anything to me. I don't even think about it as like, when did I start collecting these? It's I don't even think about it that way, really. Javier, if you had to watch one or the other for an entire day straight, would you pick Alien 4 or Howard the Duck? I would go with Alien 4 by a lot. I mean, Alien 4 is an awkward movie, but it has a bunch of cool action in it. It's got Sigourney Weaver, aliens eating people. Howard the Duck is Howard the Duck. Ricardo Soto, similar to what you said about Mank, I loved Roma because I grew up in Mexico City and could relate to just the cinematography and pics from my mom's childhood. However, many people praised who just did so to jump on a trend and not for their actual opinions. Right. And sometimes you just see that and it's pretty obvious what's kind of going on. People that there's no reason that they would be into this. They don't have any history that would indicate that they would like this type of movie, this very kind of niche film or very prestige film that and then all of a sudden someone's praising it without any disclaimers, and even some of the language they're using feels like the language of other people. It seems like someone's being influenced by their peers a little bit, or assuming the worst, they're trying to copy people, assuming the best, they're wanting to fit in and not necessarily being honest. So you know all right, final comment on here. Mr. Davis, I enjoy watching your content. I definitely love going live like this. Keep up the great work and have a nice day. Hope everyone stays safe. Bye, everybody. See you next week.